Welcome everybody, my name is Jemima Willcox. I am the co-founder of the Willcox Collective. We are adventurers on the quest to deliver amazing visual content for brands that really want to shake things up. Today I am here with my collective members and we are talking about making your mark as a female photographer. And I'm delighted to introduce you to my panel members. We have Lucinda Price with us today. She's been in business for 8 years and she still loves every minute of it, which is fantastic to hear. Every shoot, and she mainly works broadly with people and specifically mainly families. Things like wedding, corporates and personal shoots. So the way that she runs her business is to really focus on selling her time and giving all good photos from the session as part of her shoots. She really shoots in a style for more natural, capturing those lovely moments rather than a formally posed or studio style thing. And the best she can do is she like to disappear and capture real natural moments while having the confidence to take on a command when needed. So welcome, Lucinda. We also have Sarah Wills here as well. Sarah's a personal brand photographer and also does weddings too. We all see a natural theme running through our panelists today and myself. We all work with people and most of us really do have this knack of being able, like Sarah and everybody, that don't feel comfortable in front of the camera, but we really help them produce fun and natural photos that reflect their personality and really give them confidence. So welcome, Sarah. We also have Ina here, Ina Gomez. Ina is a family and branding photographer. She's based in Oxford, which is part of our collective team. She's also international too. One thing about Ina is that she really does capture emotions in a really unique way, showing that, you know, real personality of an individual. She's originally a filmmaker, but transitioned into video and then in photography. And she also runs a photo challenge group for kids and teenagers to really inspire them to get into photography and create things in a different way. Welcome, Ina.
Well, thank you.
There you go. So today we're going to have a chat about making our mark as female photographers. I think what I really want to kind of broaden this out and just say female business owners, because that's what we are. We are professionals. We work in the photography industry. And the first question I'd like to throw out to you, and it's something that Sarah said to me when we were discussing this, was it's kind of odd when asking about, you know, tell us a bit about yourself and tell us, you know, what you do and why you do it. You know, it's kind of an unconscious bias we're really fed into that as a woman. You know, maybe it's not seen to talk about ourselves in such a, you know, a self kind of promotion way. You know, it might come across a bit arrogant. So tell me, you know, where do you think you've got your confidence to shout about how awesome you are? And I'll leave that open to you.
I thought that was directed at Sarah, but it's anyone, right?
Yeah, please jump in.
For me, it's been a matter of finding the echo chamber, the right place to speak about myself, and that's been from negative experiences. So from, for example, networking in a group for a year, for a whole year, where nothing happened, nothing came from that, and then realizing it was, for a bit of a long story, but realizing that it was not the place for me. It was not the right place for me. I was new to the city at the time, so I had no idea where I was, what I was doing. And little by little, I did find those pockets of, you know, places where I felt comfortable shouting about what I do, because the response was good.
So was the environment for you, Ina, that, you know, you felt comfortable and you felt safe to be able to talk about yourself in a positive way?
Yeah, it had to be a receptive environment.
Sarah, Lucinda, do you feel that was in the right place, the right time, or do you feel that you're confident being able to talk about what you do in any scenario?
I think for me personally, it's something that's taken time. I think I was, like you were saying, I definitely grew up in an environment where talking about yourself could come across as being boastful. So I think just sort of challenging that perspective, I think, was a good place to start. So looking at, actually, I think you can talk about what you do and what you're good at in a way that isn't arrogant and isn't boastful. I think celebrating your successes and your work and what you do and what you're passionate about doesn't have to have that negative connotation that I think it does for women quite often, you know, where it's like, oh, she's boasting, or it's not ladylike to boast. But I think being able to say, actually, I did this, and I did this was successful, this worked for me, and just talking about that and sharing experiences as well with other sort of like-minded business owners. I think I've also found a really good community online during lockdown of women in business, and have been networking with them, and just it's finding that really supportive community where you talk with each other, you discuss your problems, you celebrate your successes as well. And I think that's something that's really helped me and helped my confidence as well.
That's amazing. Lucinda, how do you feel about this? Are you able to shout about what you do without a fear of being boastful?
I think being in this business for 8 years now, so when I first started, it was more kind of almost out of sheer panic of, I'm a photographer, I don't really know what I'm doing, I don't really have a business, I don't even know quite what I'm selling, I can't really believe that people want to pay me money to do this, but I'll just go with it. To now, having had 8 years of clients and experiences, and understanding that actually what I'm selling has value. So I will walk into a room or a situation, and I will actually understand where the best angles are, what the best lights are. And I've actually now got that confidence to say to a client, okay, I'll take your shot, but just trust me and I'll take the shot that I need to take. So I think, and to be fair, I would say the longer you're in business, I feel the less you need to shout out about it, because actually what I find now is, so I do various things where I work for myself, I work for other people, and I find when I'm working for myself, I run quite a quiet marketing system, and it tends to be word of mouth referral. And as a business owner, that's the best case scenario, because you're not actively having to go and shout out about yourself. You're letting your customers do that for you. And so I think I've found that it's taken me a long time to have that confidence of, here's the thing I do, I'm good at it, good enough that I'm actually going to charge money for it, and be very comfortable with doing that. But I think it's something that's evolved with me as a business and as a person. And I think there's nothing like standing in front of a whole wedding full of people and telling them what to do. That's terrifying when you do it for the first time. That I think there's a lot in photography where you're talking at people and telling them what to do, and you're slowly learning that authority and that confidence, that I think then means that as a business owner, you can walk into a space and just say, hey, I've got this thing, do you want to come and buy it? Kind of, and if someone had said to me 9 years ago, I would be telling you this, I literally would not have believed them. I would have been totally flawed. I was really shy. I didn't really go out and talk to people in a public speaking kind of a way. So, so sorry, that was a bit of a expanded thought rather than a direct answer. But I think that's kind of how I feel my business has evolved. And I think it's just how it works for me at the moment. So, yeah.
That's really fascinating insight. Listen, I mean, just a full disclosure for all our viewers is that collective members, you guys and my team, you're also running your own businesses, and we work on a supplier network in the sense that, but with what Lucinda says about time and about things like that, and it's about the confidence you gain by doing and by learning and repetitiveness. It's especially, Lucinda said, we've all worked on a project for our client this year, and I think I always make sure that I checked in with you guys on Fridays, and I was saying to our client the first Friday that I went and did the event photography for them, I was shaking, even though I'd been doing this for 5 years. I knew what the deal was. I knew what they wanted, but it was just that overcoming feeling of, there's always going to be a bit of self-doubt there. You know, we haven't done with obvious, world situations the last couple of years. We've not been in front of many people or groups and things like that. And having that confidence back again is been something to do. But it's really fascinating to hear. I mean, Sarah, I just want to come back to you, because I think from my understandings that you've been in business the shortest time for everybody on the panel. So do you feel the same with Lucinda? Over time, your confidence has grown about how you feel about running your business?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely happening now. I think sort of when I first started, I sort of, questioned everything that I did. And I spent a lot of time going, what am I doing? I'm going to be found out as a fraud, It's that. And but slowly over time, that confidence has grown. And I think, like Lucinda said, the more you do it, you start to trust your abilities and to be able to sort of talk more knowledgeably, I guess, because you learn more over time. But then you also realize that actually, I do know what I'm doing. I'm got regular clients. Producing work that my clients are happy with. So I must be doing something right. And I think it just takes a while for that confidence to grow. And I mean, a year ago, I probably wouldn't have sat on this panel and had the confidence to talk about myself as a photographer and as a business owner. So it just, it shows sort of you are always progressing, I think. And I'm very bad at looking at where I want to be in the future. And I'm like, I want to get there. But actually, if I stop and look back at sort of how much I've achieved, it's actually more than I thought. And I think that's nice. That's something I do try and focus on now, is looking at how far I've come rather than all the stuff that I still want to achieve.
Exactly. And I mean, to talking about, I'm not going to go into detail because there's many talks about this. There's imposter syndrome, where people, you have the feeling of, I'm not good enough, I'm not, able to do this. But, as Sarah says, you look back and you realize the things you've achieved and the time you've spent, and you become, over time. I think that from people watching this, it's a experience thing. As you grow over time, you grow confidence, you grow in your expertise and knowledge and learning and things like that. I think that's where we kind of overcome the challenges. And I think one thing I'd like to ask you all, from a female point of view, and if you're happy to share with us, have you had any experiences or something that comes to mind as a woman that nobody else could have had in our industry?
I am aware that I've never actually done a shoot with this demographic, but I am aware that in certain cultural weddings, etc., there is actually a demand. So I often see in some of the forums that I'm in for like wedding photographers, etc., that they want female only, so that they can go into female spaces. I think for me, in terms of, I don't know if I would perceive it necessarily advantageous, but I think women do, when you're working in the field of family photography, for example, I think there is an innate kind of ability for females to sort of interact with children in a way that perhaps men don't. Not that I'm saying that all men don't know how to interact with children, but I think there is a sort of a natural, and I think for me personally, I'm actually an aunt of two beautiful nieces who are 5 and 2, and I'm finding the way I interact with them is then helping me interact within a family shoot. So I don't think I've ever directly had something provided for me just because I'm a woman, but I do wonder, and I think there's also another benefit in terms of, I do think in times when I'm shooting, there's an ability to kind of pick up some subtle emotional experiences that the way people are behaving and stuff, that you're then maybe, if you with emotional intelligence, you're able to throw a question out or a quip to relax them down. And in fact, actually recently I was doing a shoot for the Willcox Collective for a gentleman who is looking for dating profile images. And we had quite a long chat about the female perception of images that he might want to choose in the end of the shoot. And he was actually sort of talking to me about some techniques and things, and I was sort of able to give my female viewpoint from that. So I don't think, whilst I don't think there's anything directly where I've gone, I'm a woman, so X has happened. And it may be when people are looking at photographers, perhaps some people might feel safer approaching a woman photographer. It's quite a vulnerable thing we're asking our clients to do. The very rare occasions I go in front of a camera, I remind myself what it is we're inflicting on our clients. And perhaps, although no one's ever enunciated it, someone may look at a female, think they might be more relaxing to work with than a man. So I think, in summary, I think there's probably lots of subtle innate things that are happening because we're women in quite a male-dominated field. Although no one's ever specifically said, I've picked you because you're a woman. I wonder if people have. So, yeah.
I have had that. The client you've just discussed that we worked on together specifically wanted a female photographer.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that so we have a very odd subsection of clients that come to us for dating profiles who seem to be over 60, and they seem to come to us. I'm not sure what it is, but it's fascinating. But no, it's very interesting to say that there's the benefits and there's a small kind of personality traits as we may hold versus being male. I mean, I'm just going to throw that over to Ina. Ina, have you had any, particular experiences you feel only as a woman could have in our industry?
Yes, especially at the beginning, I'd say. I was told by a male photographer that I was, just one of those mums with a camera. And, I happen to be a mum with a camera, but I'm a professional photographer, and I have a business and I have a professional career behind me. In the creation of images. So, he meant it as an insult, but it's not, I think, but he did mean it as something demeaning. And that attitude I did find a little bit at the beginning of my career as a photographer. I have to say I haven't encountered it since, and especially in the last couple of years where, same as you, Jemima, I've leaned much more into the collaboration model because I think it is the way forward. It's definitely not been there anymore. And, I wonder if it also has to do with the fact that maybe those photographers who'd been in the industry for longer just, view a newcomer as, just doesn't know what she's doing, and use that against me, but they could have used anything else, but I think it's the wrong stance anyway, as in, I do think that it's all about collaboration anyway, and there is space for all of us, and we all have our different we all have our specialties, we all have our a way of doing things, and there's plenty out there for all of us, so there's no need to be competitive in that sense.
Oh, super agree with you. That's pretty much what the collective is about. We are both strength in our collaboration over competition. And just also share with you, I think in my now being officially a professional photographer for just under 6 years now, we celebrate 6 years in October, there's been two situations I've dealt with where I have had another male photographer see me as a threat quite clearly. Whilst I was setting up my business, I tried to be very open, and everybody I came into contact with, even if they were a photographer, had a very open mind of, oh, great, that's fantastic. Tell me more. I want to learn from you. I see as a opportunity to grow and to collaborate. He had not got that attitude, really had not got that attitude. And whilst I was setting up and understanding that I wanted to move into headshots and brand portraits and events and corporate, whilst he did a very similar thing, whilst I was setting up the headshots packages, I got a very angry email from this individual telling me that I had copied verbatim, word for word, his packages. Now, I had not, but when you work in a similar environment and field, there's obviously going to be some similarities. So he threatened to take me to court because I was stealing his copy. I left it. I did not react. I think as women, maybe as well, we may be deemed to be quite emotional. And I've learned over time and with kind of developing my own, my self-development, is that taking on emotion and not reacting and jumping to conclusions. So I left it. I kind of went, I'm not going to touch this. I sought advice from my peers, from my network, from my mentors, and I was told basically just to leave it alone. And then this individual would not leave me alone, and I got a very abusive phone call saying that if I didn't take my website down because of this infringement of copyright, of taking his words, he'd take me to court. And I reacted, and I have to say, my husband said to me that he watched me do this, and if he was on the phone, he would have reacted in a very aggressive and a nasty way. I turned around and said, look, I very much appreciate you feel this way, but it is not the case. I am new to this industry. I'm creating my own packages, and I believe very strongly over, collaboration. And this is not the attitude I would get from somebody like you. And I think he wasn't prepared for somebody to come back at him with strength, with confidence, that he was, that he was being told he was wrong. And he finally backed down. And he apologized, and he said he wasn't going to take me to court, and it was a big misunderstanding. And I said, look, no, it's great. We work in a similar place. We work in the same city. I admire you as an individual. You've done very well, but, don't treat me like this, because that's the thing. And ever since then, we've never spoke. And that was right at the beginning of my career. And it's always in the back of my head. It's always, whenever I encounter anybody new, it's pushed me and made me think about ways that I can champion others. That's why the collective exists, that we work massively better as a collective of differentiating opinions and styles and experiences. But that kind of thing, having, what we call in our kind of in the industry, and we've coined this as some of my clients, pale, male and stale. These photographers who have been around the block for years and years, who know what they're doing, but they are not open to collaboration. They're not open to growing, and they think that we're going to steal all their clients, when no, our clients will, measure us on our work, our professionalism, the standards we keep, not that we are going to steal everybody else's kind of stuff. We want to better each other's selves. So yes, it's absolutely fascinating. The second incident was actually a client that I experienced, and this client, even though I was very much on the up of making sure everything was signed off and all my processes were then, the verbal abuse I got from him was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. It was at a stage a couple of years ago where I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue as a photographer, and I nearly gave up, because he nearly, the abuse I was getting off of him was that bad that I was like, I need to take a step back and think about it. But I am really grateful that, reflecting on back of these experiences with the other photographer in Cambridge, who I believe is still going, this one particular client who I believe is still going, they made me stronger. They made me go, I'm not going to give up because you've got an opinion about something. I'm going to show you, I'm going to be amazing. And now we are freaking amazing. You know, we're an agency of over 14 people across the UK. We're doing amazing work and things like that. So I think that's given me the strength and kind of the grit and the stubbornness of going, how dare you think you can do that? No, I'm not going to lay down. I'm not going to roll over. I'm going to show you. And I'm also going to be, inspiration and mentor for other people to do this as well. So talking about kind of the challenges and experiences we've had, let's throw this out to you as well. You know, are there any particularly really big challenges you've had in your business career thus far, and how did you overcome? Ina, do you want to kick us off with that?
I mean, apart from COVID. I mean,
yes, but we're all still here. We're all still going, and it's amazing. I'm so proud of all of us that we are still there. And obviously, there are, it's interesting that we talked about kind of individuals that have been around for ages. Then, not everybody got through COVID, and it was a time in people's lives to make changes, but we all did. So obviously, that was one of the things. But maybe apart from COVID, if there's something else that you wanted to discuss.
I'd say sometimes, it's more as a business owner, you're bound to have those ups and downs, and when you're on those downs, it's sometimes difficult to keep motivation up, to keep going. And as long as it's not complete peaks and troughs, and it's just, those ups and downs are a bit more subtle, then and know how to navigate the seasons within your business. Now I know, 5, almost 6 years in, I know what those seasons look like in my business. So I no longer get stressed when I go into the more of a lull kind of season, because I know it's when actually it's a positive. It's a moment to take stock. It's a moment to think about the next 12 months ahead, and it's a moment to maybe relook at my marketing, or relook at what I'm doing and what I'm offering, what's worked well, what hasn't. Do I need to drop a service? Do I need to add a service? Do I need to tweak my pricing? Do I need to tweak my offering? So, that's how I've dealt with it. It's like, the world doesn't end. And, we were talking about this, Jemima, recently with the end of this big project that we've all just been a part of. And it reminded me of when I worked in the film industry. And I had, all of a sudden you were working on a film, and it was minimum 12-hour days for a minimum of 6 days a week for whatever length of time that project was. So you lived for that film for, anywhere between 2 to 6 months. And then all of a sudden you were happy that it was over, because it was very intense, a lot of work, very energy draining. But then the day it was over, you were like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with my life? I'm going to drown now. I have nothing else, lined up. And then obviously something would happen. And with photography, it's not so black or white. It's not like you finish a big project and then there's nothing ahead. You always have a bit of a pipeline. But yeah, it's learning to navigate that. And I'd say especially with me, it was motivation when it was those down moments. Having plan Bs or plans B, I don't know how to put that in plural, was not a positive actually, because it's like, oh, it's so easy for me to just go and do something else for money, to make a living, because I'm the sole earner in my small family. So so it's that thing of, no, stop it, Ina, there are other clients coming, as long as this, and now I know, 5-6 years on, now I know when those lulls are coming, and I welcome them. So
yeah, like I've just been on holiday, and I sent my assistant off to manage my inbox. As soon as I go on holiday, 3 inquiries come in, and my brain's like, oh, good. Okay, cool. There's something for me to do when I get back. So same to you, Sarah. Kind of what is your biggest challenge you've experienced bar COVID in the time you've been a professional photographer?
Oh gosh, I mean, mine is going to be partly COVID related, but purely, I mean, So when I first started, and I started probably about 4 years ago, but doing it alongside a full-time job. And then I went part-time, so while my business was growing. That was pre-COVID. Obviously, COVID hit and my contracting work ended. So I'm like, right, I'm going to go full-time photography during lockdown, which seemed like a really good idea. And it was a bit of a risk because obviously there was no going out to shoot at certain times. And I was very new, really. I mean, apart from obviously doing it part-time, but I hadn't had that time to dedicate to, I guess, marketing myself. But actually sort of having that enforced sort of time to focus was actually really helpful. So even though I couldn't go out and I couldn't take photos that much, it sort of forced me to look at, right, okay, what do I need to grow my business? I need to work on my websites. I need to work on, I can educate myself more. I can learn online. I can look at my skills and where my skills are lacking and what I can learn virtually. And also I joined loads of Facebook groups, and I just started kind of, I don't know if networking is the right word. I sort of it was nice to talk to other people and other business owners and people who are in similar circumstances, and to sort of share tips and get, actually found really nice communities online and that were so helpful, and just sharing that experience. And and again, it was kind of networking and learning, and it was putting time into my business, though it wasn't out actually doing paid shoots. It was actually sort of laying foundations for my business to grow in the future. And I think actually, although it was quite scary and challenging at the time, I think it meant I came out of COVID and lockdown in a much better place than I would have had I not spent that time, and had I just said, oh, actually, I'm going to give up and go and get, try and find another contract doing something else. So that was sort of
fantastic,
scary and challenging, but worth it in the long run.
Exactly. Lucinda, same to you. Is there a particular challenge you've had to overcome in your photography experience years?
The biggest challenge was my completely slightly off the cuff idea 8.5 years ago to just say I'm going to become a photographer, and I was very much a hobbyist at that point, and so I quit work, and there's nothing like stopping your income to incentivize you to build your business as quickly as you can. And I learned to bake bread very well whilst I was waiting for this business to come in. So I think that was the biggest challenge, was going from someone who took photos to being a professional photographer, because I realised, I think if I'd understood exactly what it was that I was trying to achieve, I never would have started in the first place. It would have felt like a much bigger mountain. So I think it was about working out also how to be a business owner around I like taking photographs, and they're two very separate identities. And I think I really I really, when Ina was talking about the peaks and troughs, I really felt akin to that. It's something I feel that there are times where you're sat there and you're thinking, is any work ever, is anyone ever going to remember who I am and book me again? And invariably, sort of the next day, an inquiry will drop in. You'll be like, oh, thank goodness. So there is that element of it that I think is challenging, because you get the real high. So you go off to a wedding, you have this immersive day where you're right with the bride and groom all day, having this lovely, intimate moments, really special kind of amazing experience. And then you might go home and obviously you've got all the editing to do and all the hard work, but you might not have another inquiry, you might not know when your next shoot is. But I think, like Ina, I've learned so I know that August for me always seems to be dead quiet. I think everyone's away on holiday, so no one books anything. And January is absolutely dead, but then I always leave my self-assessment for them. So that's a post-Christmas present for myself. So I think I would agree it's about learning how to, because I always say to people, I feel like I'm never working, but I always feel like I'm working, because I could be writing emails at 11:30 at night, or I could get an inquiry or whatever. I could decide that I want to get up and edit, having just chilled out all day. And I think I think that's another challenge with this lifestyle, is trying to make sure it doesn't end up being with you working all the time and just being a photographer, and actually remembering to carve out some time for yourself as a person. And I've spent the last year trying to get that balance better, but June and July I totally failed at that and I was just working all the time. But I think we all know in our industry it's a very popular time of year, so I think there are challenges, but I think you wouldn't embark on the journey we're on if you didn't have what I imagine you all have, the passion and love for it, and the enjoyment of every shoot, because it's hard work and it would be challenging if you didn't love it. So yeah.
Well, that's really good points you raised. I mean, I want to just touch on the work-life balance aspect. So I think the major thing I realised that I don't fit into the conventional 9 to 5 having a boss. It took me good, 20 years to figure that out. I never intended to be a business owner, but when I started this, I realized that I have ultimate freedom of setting my time, my hours when I want to work. An interesting thing that's quite different to all three of you is that I do business hours. So I generally do Monday to Friday. Don't often work on a weekend unless it's a client I know very well, or it's one of you guys I'm setting you up with a client to do a weekend thing. But with work-life balance, for me, I've been putting a lot of emphasis on my health, and that being a higher priority than coming in and banging out emails for 8 hours a day, is prioritizing going to the gym and my mental health, meditation and things like that. And I think I have discovered this year, post 2 years of COVID, of a roller coaster of even up and downs, and we were very much, we're in the same boat. We're in very much different ships, but at the same time, we're coming out of it slowly. And, the world doesn't seem to want to let up with all the crazy things that are happening on a daily basis. But the good thing that we know as business owners, we have the control to be able to decide what happens in our day to day, and, what's important to us. And this year for me, it's been prioritizing my mental and physical health, and that to me is not spending Monday morning coming into the office, and that's going to yoga and going to the gym and having long walks, and realizing that I'm not a morning person. You're unlikely to get me in the morning. You're likely to get me until after a good 11 a.m. but I'll work till maybe 7, 8 in the evening, because that's how I feel flexible. So with that in mind, with kind of the work-life balance and things that you've kind of prioritized, knowing that you have that power to dictate your hours, Sarah, tell me, have you looked at your work-life balance in the last year or so and made any changes, or has it been the same since you jumped into being full-time?
I suppose, yeah, I think trying to find that balance is been a bit of a journey for me. Because I think when you're newer to your business, you're sort of going, right, I must, obviously you take all the work that you can get because you want to be busy. And I still worry about the quieter times of the year, although a little less so now. So it's reminding myself, especially when I'm working weekends, to go, right, okay, you can have a day off in the week. It's fine, because you're working. Otherwise, you're going to work 7 days a week, and that's not sustainable. So it's sort of giving myself little reminders, like I'm taking this Friday off because I know I'm working Saturday, Sunday. And so I'm like, right, I'm going to put something in, and I'm going to go off and go out of London and, do some exploring and just have a nice, relaxing day. But yeah, I mean, I love working for myself. It's something I wanted to do for a long time. I wasn't, like you said, for me, working for other people wasn't the right fit. I wanted to do something that was for me. And I love the flexibility. I love that I can go for a run. I'm training for the marathon, so I can go for a run in the middle of the day when I want, because it's my time and I can manage it how I want. Or I can go, right, actually, I need to go clear my head. I'm going to go for a long walk and a coffee and get away from the desk. But then I'm happy then, to catch up on editing in the evening while I'm, sort of sat, after dinner, with the TV on in the background, and just catch up on emails and a bit of editing or whatever I need to. So I quite like that flexibility, and I don't mind doing slightly different hours. It doesn't, I don't feel the need to do 9 to 5. I just go, right, okay, I've got this to do today, but actually I feel like a break, so I'll take it. And I like that flexibility. So, but yeah, I think getting that balance and that time off is something I need to get a bit better at.
Yeah, and that's fascinating because, like, there are days where you just don't feel it. You just come in, nothing's working, and the worst thing you can do is make yourself sit there for another couple of hours and do stuff, because you know for a fact that the quality of whatever you're doing is worse than if you just take a step back. But it's a double-edged sword, because then you realise that whenever you are taking that time off, I suffer a little bit from this, but I've been working on it and it's been improving. There is an element of guilt of, I should be working, I should be generating that. But at the same time, I know taking that time out to get my head away from the problems or the things that are remunerating is going to be so much better. So Ina, do you agree with me? Because I know you are amazing in running more than one business. So you have a lot of things to do with your work-life balance.
Well, I don't call it work-life balance because I don't think it can be, in the sense that I have a daughter, I do run another business, so it's about compartmentalizing, and it's my time I'm doing things for my photography business or for my other business or for my family. Sometimes they blend in. My daughter does come with me every now and then. She's helped me with mini sessions. She's helped me with designing sets. She's 8, by the way, so I can't listen to everything she says because they're not always the best ideas, but yeah, I'm not good at then having time for myself. That's not something I've been good at. I do work weekends, normally Saturday and Sunday, and I should do like Sarah and say, well, because I'm working Saturday and Sunday, I should then take Monday off or Friday, but I don't. So unless so yesterday was Sunday, I didn't work, good, but it just happened to be a Sunday that I didn't work, not because I'd necessarily planned it. So it came in very handy. I had a lovely day with my daughter, but yeah, that's not an aspect I'm good at. I have to say, it's probably an aspect where I need to improve.
So Lucinda, tell me about your work-life balance, because for everybody by me kind of tries not to work weekends. How do you manage, say, having a wedding and a portrait shoot on a Saturday and a Sunday? Do you take, like Sarah, time off? How do you manage your work-life balance?
I've kind of worked out that I think there's a rough, in my head, maximum amount of shoots that I can physically manage in a week, because I find shoots a bit like doing a sort of full-blown presentation, and the stress of all of that for hours and hours. So the editing I can sort of have infinite a week and I wouldn't mind, but actual going out and shooting, so I tend to kind of look at my diary and go, I've got this many shoots in the week, and not book anything else. But I think there's two things. One is, I think I've got a lot better at looking at my diary, because when I first started, I used to be like, well, I've got an hour and a half that's free there, so that will fit the shoot. But then I wouldn't think about like the journey time and actually just the physical aspect of that day being so full. And there was one summer where I was working so hard, it actually started reflecting in my work, because I was tired and I had a complaint or two, and it was still when I was quite new and I was still learning, and I was like, this, I'm just not, I want high standards for how I run my business. I don't want to squeeze things in. So I'm a lot better at saying, no, I'm busy, even though technically I've got that time free, because mentally it's just too much. And I think the other thing I found, I don't think I knew that I wanted to be my own boss. It was more, I wanted to stop what I was doing, and I couldn't find a job that suited. And I knew a few people who were self-employed, and I thought, oh, I'll give that a go. So again, all of the, I was, it was such an unplanned kind of vague idea that's actually turned into an 8-year-old business, which I still can't quite believe occasionally. But I think one of the things I've really found, and it's been quite interesting I've been doing some part-time work over the pandemic back in an office environment where I have set office hours, is I find with my own business, I know when I'm good at working, and I'll work really hard doing some editing in the morning, take a long extended break, and then go back to doing. And actually, a lot of my email work, I know I quite like doing it of an evening. So I've actually learned to work, because I think I'll work a lot better in a compressed amount of time when I'm working at my best capacity, rather than having to work for the sake of ticking hours off a clock. So I couldn't actually tell you how many hours I work every week, but some weeks it feels like 24/7, and other times it's just one shoot and an edit, and then you're left twiddling your thumbs for the rest of the week. But that's where I think also I've stopped being led by the work. So I'm starting to actually book in social things, because I found what I was doing was always working and missing out having a summer. And then I get to about this time of year and think, oh, I haven't really been out and not working and enjoying myself. So I think that comes with being in the business long enough that you need to have that confidence of knowing the work will come, that you actually start carving this time out for yourself. And I'm a great advocate now for having that confidence in myself, for saying, no, I need to remember I'm a person, I need to rest, and that I'll be better for my clients for having done it. But I think I'll go back to what I was saying earlier. There's no way you do this lifestyle if you didn't love it, and I do. And I still love that moment when you come off a shoot and you download the pictures, and it, as experienced as I am, and as I'm planning the pictures, and I know how awesome they're going to look, and then you just get those portfolio style shots that come out the camera, and you just can't quite believe it. And I think that's the buzz that keeps you going through all the tired times, and all the quiet times where you're like, am I ever going to work again? So but yeah, I think it's something that you have to be quite strict. The work-life balance you need to be really, really strict about, I think, to have the longevity and not burn yourself out. And
precisely, yeah. I've learned over time where to kind of block out holidays. So I think I've only been doing this for maybe a year, 2 years. I know there are 4 bits of time through the year, probably, where I block time off for holiday. If I don't block that time off for holiday, that's me working. That's going to continue. And like Lucinda says, the more you work, you're burning yourself out. Your quality is lowering. Your clients are going to get less happy as well. I think the one thing I just kind of want to move on to, I've got some very fascinating stats for you to share. When I was having a look before our call, it's fascinating. So only 18% of accredited members of the Association of Photographers are female. 18%. That's absolutely crazy. And something that I think we should talk about, and why this is and how we can combat it, is that from my research, women are earning on average 40% less than their male counterparts. It's not on, we do equally or possibly better than, and we've talked about maybe our clients might have a more of a preference for a female photographer. Why should that mean that we get 40% less than that? So I'd like to know, is this accurate, do you think? Is this something that we need to do? And if so, what can we do? Ina, do you have any thoughts on that?
As a collective, women photographers, that's, we are self-employed, so that's definitely on us. We set our pricing. I don't know about you, but I don't allow my clients to tell me what they're going to pay me. This is my pricing, and it's up to me whether I put it up or not. So, and I've struggled with that. I've struggled with pricing in a profitable way. So, I think there's a lot of that in female photographers. I think the fact that such a low number of us are accredited it's also down to that, we've all talked about those insecurities at the beginning, especially, and then you sort of get into the professional aspect of it, and then you sort of don't bother to go to those things, or it's not for you, it's for other types of photographers, right? And I think there is a chunk of that is down to us, a big chunk of that. Nobody is telling us what our prices are, it's us. So we need to change it and encourage others to change it as well.
Sarah, what do you think about it? Yeah, as a community, like I'll come to you, Sarah, in a sec, but as a community, as a collective of our team, you guys, we pride ourselves on paying you what you're worth, and you will tell us what you want us to be paid, and we will make sure that client is aware of what you're going to be paid. In the case of maybe where the client stated how much they're going to pay, but we are going to make it worth your while with not being 1 or 2, but maybe 5, 6, 7 kind of elements. But I think it's really, really important for women to stand up and say, we are worth it. We are worth what we do. We are incredibly experienced and talented individuals. And it kind of goes to the wider conversation of the fact the gender pay gap is out there anyway, by, I believe, and this is probably wrong, but by, I think it comes to maybe October, November time of the year, we then stop being paid. If we were male, we'd be carried on being paid. Then there are certain times of a year where we are not paid what we are worth because there's a gender pay gap, that we then work for free. Working for free is no topic we will go on to in the future, maybe, until there's certain, things about that you can work for free. But as we are skilled individuals, we have bills to pay. Our landlords and mortgage advisors and utility companies don't get paid in exposure. They don't accept exposure. So we shouldn't be, being relied upon by individuals to be expected to be that and be paid fairly. So, Sarah, tell me your thoughts on that. Should we be, 40% less than our male counterparts? What do you think?
That's great. Those stats are crazy, aren't they?
Mm.
And I think it's still, some way to go before that actually changes for good. I suppose from my experience, I think it's having confidence in my pricing and the value of my work. And I think that's something I struggled with, certainly when I was a lot newer, because I was going, I can't possibly charge any more because, I'm new. And so, and obviously there is, when you're newer, there is going to be a price difference. But I think, it's reflecting, your prices should reflect the quality of your work and also the industry as well, and the industry where you live. And that definitely took me a while to go, right, actually, this is what I'm worth. This is the value of my work. I live in London as well. Obviously, it's.
Yeah, for you being in London, I would, as a client, would have expectations that there would be a more increase of your work, because there's obviously, there's higher costs of living. There's, other competitors you need to do. So I'd imagine that's something you had to consider as well.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, one turning point for me is I had a client that I work a lot with other women who have their own businesses doing brand shoots, and I did a shoot with her, and she's like. She was really happy with the shoot. She was really happy with her images, and her only feedback was, "You need to charge more." And she said, "I wasn't going to tell you that before I booked you, because obviously, why would you if you you get a good deal?" But to have a client say you should be charging more did make me think, "Oh, actually, you know what? I'm not valuing what I offer as much as I should." And that gave me confidence to go, right, actually, I've got to change. I'm going to change my prices. And there's that fear that if you put them up, you won't get any bookings. And actually, it's been fine. Like, I haven't lost out on any bookings. And I've learned to say no as well to people who, they go, "I really like your work, but it's just, it's too much. Can you offer a discount?" And maybe occasionally, if it's a really amazing job or something, would I think about it? Maybe. But generally, I'm like, actually, no, this is, I think, the value of my work, and sticking to that and believing in it, I think is important as well. And something that sort of took me a while to get to, but I still feel like I'm sort of a bit more there now, which is good.
Yeah. And Lucinda, I'm curious, because you being, somebody that's been doing this for a long while now, have you found that, you know, you've had inquiries by people then go, we found us cheaper elsewhere? How do you generally react to that, and how have you felt over the time you've been a professional photographer with what you charge?
I think at the beginning it used to kind of always hurt, you know, when someone was like, why don't they want me and stuff, but now I'm just like, no, you're just not my client. And one of the things that I find really helpful, that I really, just listening to all of this, realised that I think I now do automatically without ever consciously deciding to do this. Every time I do a shoot, I think about the time that I've spent emailing the client, particularly with bigger, more in-depth ones. You quite often have an hour-long phone call, which you need to prepare for. You need to kind of I quite often write a summary and send it to them afterwards. So even before you step over the door into their job, you've often done a good number of hours of prep. And then I think about the time it takes me to, because it does take time, as I'm sure you both know, just to get your chargers out, just to get all the batteries ready. So it's not just the hours of the charging, and I always tend to go through my kit and think about what lens I might want to start with and settings and things, so the cameras are sort of semi-ready before I turn up. So that all takes time. Then you've got to think about how to get there and plan all of that kind of logistics. And even sometimes, like on a wedding day, thinking about the snacks that you might want to pack and stuff, and all of that takes time. And then you're there on site, and then when I'm editing as well, and just the download for a big job might take an hour or two just to physically get them off the cards onto hard drives and up into Lightroom and looking at them. And so mentally now I start tracking a rough amount of hours as I'm going through each job, and then I divide the price I charge. And sometimes the hourly rate is actually not far off what I'm earning as an administrator part-time. And I think, hang on a minute, but I've got to then cover kit replacement, insurance, electricity, etc., etc. So it's not just about, so I think once I'd started realising that aspect of it, because when I first started, it felt like I was just putting my finger in the air and going, oh, I'll charge £200 for this. And I was thinking, but that's an awful lot of money. And I was thinking, yes, but actually now when I start thinking about the amount of hours, so an hour and a half shoot will actually translate to somewhere closer to a day. So in a week, yes, you've got lots of hour and a half you could be shooting for, but you can't do that many of them because you'd be absolutely broken by the end of it. And I think that's what's helped me build that confidence in pricing. But I think going back to what you were saying about the gender gap, I think there is a tendency with women, and I think as gender equality becomes stronger and better, hopefully the generation following us will have more confidence. But I think we always want to please, and I certainly come as I came into this as someone who wanted to make everyone happy and just be nice and stuff. And so the thought of charging money, and I'm quite frugal in the way I live anyway, so I always want to be a good deal, but it's also having that respect for myself of, hang on a minute, if I'm going to do it too cheaply, I'm just going to resent it. And I learned those lessons. I did cheap jobs and I just felt the hours ticking up, and by the end I was like, this isn't worth £50. I've done like a whole day's work and I'm worth more than this. And I think it was a good experience to go through that and to get it wrong, to then learn how to get it right. But I do wonder as well with the gender inequality, is I do wonder if sometimes, which is the reality with women across business everywhere, is a lot of women have childcare issues, are part-time workers, possibly have a significant income stream from the other partner within the house. And I do think if perhaps you're in a position where you've got a lot going on, that maybe you aren't earning as much. And in terms of registering with people, if you're trying to juggle childcare, running your own business, which we all know takes a lot of time, are you going to spend the time signing up to accrediting yourself and so on. You're just going to do the bare minimum. So I wonder if there's actually a reality of the lives that women in our industry are living that are partly to do with some of those figures. So yeah, it's an interesting thought to sort of. But I like where Ina was saying before she left. I like where she was saying it's up to us to. At least we're in an industry where we can change that. We can charge our prices and make it fair, which I think is a good thing.
Exactly. Now, look, going on to kind of wrapping us up now, we touched on it right at the beginning. As a collective and as kind of the ethos of my business and you guys working with us as well, that you also share this as well. It's all about the community, is about the strength in our collaboration over competition. I think, we want to inspire future women and, non-binary and other marginalized voices to come into this industry, to have an opinion, to show their creative, expressions. And that's what photography is. It's, capturing that creative expression of an individual for us, or, capturing that moment in time. And I feel, it's super important that we start championing women, especially women of color, non-binary, other marginalized voices. And what we need to do is create and sustain a supportive and inclusive and collaborative environment, because there's, as we discussed, we all do something different. We're all, you put 4 photographers in a room and give them an apple to photograph. They can all do it slightly differently. There's more than enough clients to go around for us as photographers to get out there and do that kind of work. So there's enough room at the table for people to eat. So, in your opinions, how can we support other female photographers? Sarah?
I suppose it is about having that community, I think. And when I was starting out, having, people that were in the industry, and just to be able to ask questions and have people take the time to answer them, I think that was really invaluable. And I sort of hope to offer my time back now that I'm more experienced as well. I think, I think I've been quite lucky. And actually within the female photography community as well, I found the most helpful and the most supportive, which has been lovely. And I think the fact that we are generally supportive of each other has been so helpful. And just having that space where it's safe to ask questions. And I'm sure, I would have asked really silly, they're not silly, they're just stuff that you don't know when you're new, but you do, people with more experience can help you with. But those questions that you have when you're starting out that you just, you're not aware of, or, being able to ask the silly questions in a safe space, I think is important. And I think if, like continuing that and like I said, just offering that back. And I think those little things have made the world of difference, at least for me anyway.
That's great. And just to share with you, so I started my photography career by assisting Lucinda, and we did weddings. And we started off that way, and it's kind of come full circle now. Lucinda's part of our collective, and we've done some great work this year already. Lucinda, really great to know how you think we can support, female photographers starting new, or like us doing it for a while.
I think, one thing I did want to reflect on was I was really surprised when I came into the industry, actually how welcoming both male and female, everyone in the photography community here in Cambridge was, because I sort of would come in quite apologetically to places and be like, I'm not coming to compete, that you're not in my area and stuff. And everyone would be like, no, let's just talk cameras, that you're another one of us, and just enjoying it. And I think, like you say, there's plenty of room at the table, and I think we all respect and understand that we've all got our own clients, and for somewhere like Cambridge, it seems it's so enormous in terms of demand, and you've got all the conferencing, you've got weddings, you've got personal, there's just so many different places to sit and be, that I think once they respect where you are and your skills, they're actually just more interested in talking. There's also quite a lot of collaboration over sharing work, So I know Jemima and I have often messaged and said, are you free on this date, and sort of shared jobs, and there's quite a few people in my network that we'll share work with. So actually by collaborating, you are helping each other out on those jobs that you can't do. In terms of people getting into the industry, one of the things that I always think is a shame in our industry is we all work from home, and we all work quite up and down hours every week. So when we get those inevitable work experience approaches, I always turn them down because you've got child protection issues, because of course you're in your home alone with children. And so I will always try as best as I can to answer any queries in forums and anyone who wants to ask for help. But it's a shame that there isn't a sort of a route in to help people wanting to come into the industry. But I think the industry as a whole, there's so many forums. You were saying about that, Sarah, just so many great forums, and I think that's been one of the another revelation is just how happy people are to share different parts of their businesses, and here's a problem and the advice that people will give. And even sometimes within these forums there's an opportunity for people to just let off steam about scenarios where customers are being difficult, but also to get people going, yeah, that's not unfair, but also to get some really good professional advice. And I think it's quite lovely that we can support each other all over the country.
There's a validation there, isn't there, Lucinda? You're kind of going, oh, is that me? Or was that them? No, it's actually them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky all my clients so far have been pretty lovely. But you certainly see in these forums there are some pretty interesting interactions that go on in our industry. So, yeah.
I agree. I think from my point of view, we've been very fortunate that we've evolved from me being a photographer, working in our office at home, to being able to be based at Eagle Labs here. This year, we've progressed even further to the point that we now have 14 collective members, and we had our first intern over the summer, which Lucinda got the delight to be able to work with. And I think the major thing with that, I learned a huge amount of stuff about me, about my business, and, you know, the kind of person that I was looking for. And our intern was an amazing young individual, young lady that's now gone off to Bournemouth to start her creative industries degree. And the things that kind of made me think about her, that made her stand out, was her desire to learn, her desire to try everything. You know, she wasn't so in the photography or the videography camp. She just wanted to see how everything worked and see what worked for her. And whilst she worked with me and Lucinda, you know, she had the right attitude. She understood when to ask questions. She understood when to not ask questions. And that kind of attitude, you know, really contributed very well to working with us. And I think the one thing that frustrates me slightly is there's not much of a good connection, and this is Cambridge specifically, and I'm working on this, is with education. I went and did a degree. I have a BA Honours in photography from Anglia Ruskin. If you'd asked me, and that's graduated 11 years ago now, if you asked me, would I go do a degree now? I'd say no. I really wouldn't spend all that money on doing it. I would definitely advise anybody to go do sixth form and do further education and get that under their belt. But what I think what needs to be done with individuals coming into the industry that are, you know, young people, they need to be connected with other businesses around that are having those opportunities to give them experience. These educational establishments, I mean, Anglia Ruskin and I are going to be working together, but sixth form colleges, I'm finding it very difficult to battle in to give them opportunities to, you know, real world kind of aspects. I think also, as we've touched on, we are in communities, but we had to search quite a bit to find them. We had to kind of dig deep and find the ones that we resonated with. And it's been said that we felt safe in, that we could ask those deemed silly questions and not feel embarrassed or humiliated by somebody going, you should know this already. Well, no, I don't. I'm new. I'm learning. I only get to learn by asking these questions. So again, there's an element to say about the community space of finding that tribe. And that's just not photography. That's all businesses. Finding that tribe of individuals that you really bounce and relate with, and you have the same ethos and values. But again, like thing with the collective, we are this year, because an individual couldn't do our internship, we created the junior collective member option, where if you were 18 plus, and that's again insurance reasons, we can't have anybody under 18, which is sucky, but that's life. We have junior collective member status where they get to be with us for a year as I get, informal mentoring. They'll get work with us. They'll get under our insurance as well for a year. Cause, as a professional business, you've got to pay for insurance and subscriptions and there are all these other things. And as you're starting out, you need a bit of a lift. But I think mentoring and support is a huge thing that, that's why people I've said to our intern and young person or any person that comes up, just ask. You might probably get a no, but you asked. And you're sticking that person's head by going, you took time out of your comfort zone to say, I really like this. I want experience in this. And if I can, you maybe have something. And now we've only been able to do this while working in an office and having a relatively stable-ish after many years, routine of clients and knowing what we want. We've now had the ability over summer to have an intern come in and get actual work experience. Because it breaks my heart every time somebody comes in and goes, can I have work experience? I'm like, I would love to give it to you. But our industry is it fluctuates so much. As Lucinda said, we might get one shoot 1 week, we might have nothing for 3 weeks, then we'll have a month worth of back-to-back bookings, and the instability on that is difficult to give an individual the opportunities. But I think to communicate, and what we said about community is an important strength, and collaboration over competition. Every time, nobody's there to one up on you. No one's there to, to prove you wrong. But it's all about having this community, having the ability to get support from everybody. So I'm just going to say, Lucinda, Sarah, is there any further last remarks you'd like to talk about as your journey as a female photographer and what we talked about today?
The only thing I'd like to do is just to pick up on what you were saying about university and doing a photography degree. I've done some work with kids voluntarily, and one of the things sometimes they ask me is kind of about being a photographer and stuff. And I often say, actually, one of the things I would advise if you're wanting to set up your own business is go and work for someone else, see how they do the business. So I've done quite a lot of work around invoicing, chasing invoices and stuff. So I actually came to running a business having actually chased invoices before, which really helped. And I think I would, coming from where I came from, where I haven't got a photography degree, so I've learned on the job as such. And I think there's so many resources out there. I suspect for some people a degree may be the right route, but I definitely advise working for another business to sort of work out how you want to run your own business, and not necessarily. I think with photography, it feels like people either have there is something innate in being a photographer. You've got the knack of being able to compose that picture, and then you learn the technical stuff around it. And I think it's part of an identity of who you are as a person. So yeah, I think it's quite an interesting job where you can actually start. I started in my 30s. Jemima, you were saying you went off and did a few other things. Sarah, you're obviously you were clearly doing other things and then have moved into photography. And I feel like it's an industry where a lot of us do that, rather than coming out brand new and going straight into it. So. But yeah, I don't think I've got anything else to add other than that. But it's just hearing you say that, I was like, actually, that really resonates with something I feel as well about it. So yeah. Thank you.
Sarah, what are your final thoughts on our topic today and everything I've mentioned?
I actually just going to agree with Lucinda. I think having those extra business skills as well, because it's not just about the photography side, it's about all the things behind the business that you need, that, you know, that's actually been a big learning curve for me, is even, you know, actually having corporate experience in the past has helped me in certain respects as far as the business side. But then there are other sides that I just had no clue what I meant to do, you know. So I think, like, actually, yeah, that learning side on the business, the running a business side and business skills is just as valuable as well. And it's sort of half the photos and your love for photography, but it's also the supporting that as a business as well. That's something to sort of invest time and education in.
I don't think any of us went into this going, yeah, we're a business owner, we get to send invoices. And we were like, no, we want to go into this because we want to take photographs and we want to create awesome memories. Because I think a random stat for you, I think in my working week, or, you know, my professional job, maybe 20% of my time is taking photos, maybe less. You know, the rest of my time. And I think that's what maybe social media has glamorized, the fact that look at this photographer on this beautiful shoot doing all these things. Well, actually, they've also got to do their accounting, their invoices, do chasing clients, payment details, organizing all these other things. There's a lot more to it than kind of thing. I think it also shows as women how strong we are and how determined we are to run businesses that serve what we want to do in our lives, and also enable us to have freedom in the choices we make, as well as the clients we work with, and having that, you know, that creative expression gives us the opportunities to do. So I want to thank Lucinda and Sarah, and also Ina, who joined us today as part of this panel discussion. Do tune in for further panel discussions coming very soon. So thanks, guys. See you soon.
Thank you.